In the year 2169, a genetic engineering experiment changed humanity forever. The goal was to make humans immortal by stopping aging at 25 years old. The experiment worked, but with a deadly twist. Once a person turned 25, they were given only 1 year to live. Every person had a digital clock embedded in their arm. As soon as they turned 25, a 1-year countdown began. The moment the timer reached 0, the person died instantly. Because of this, time became the most valuable thing in the world. Time replaced money and became the global currency. People no longer worked for cash. They worked to earn time. Time was used to buy food, water, and daily necessities. If someone ran out of time, they died. The rich had so much time that they were practically immortal, but poor and middle-class people had to work every single day just to survive. Most of them lived with less than 24 hours, always 1 second away from death. The world was divided into time zones. New Greenwich was reserved for the rich. The ghetto time zones were where poor and middle-class people lived. In the ghetto city of Dayton lived a young man named Will Salas. He was middle class and had only 23 hours left on his clock. Will lived with his mother, Rachel. It was her 50th birthday, but in this world, no one aged past 25, so she still looked young. To celebrate, Will worked overtime and bought a bottle of champagne, but Rachel told him she was going out to pay bills and loan EMIs. She warned him that by the time she returned, she would have almost no time left. She asked Will to wait at the bus stop so she could take some of his time before hers ran out. Will promised her that he would be there on time. After that, Will and his mother planned to celebrate her birthday together. Before leaving, Rachel touched Will's arm and transferred 30 minutes to his clock so he could buy a proper breakfast. Then, they both left for their jobs. Will reached the factory. Before starting work, he stopped to buy coffee, but the prices had increased. The coffee that once cost 3 minutes now cost 4 minutes. Shopkeepers raised prices whenever they wanted. Time was always being taken from the poor. Will paid 4 minutes for the coffee and went to work. Later that night, Will went to a bar where his close friend Boral was drinking. Boral was a heavy alcoholic, and Will had come to take him home because his wife was worried, but Boral refused to leave. He pointed at a man inside the bar and said the man was buying free drinks for everyone. Will looked at the man's clock. He had 116 years of time. This was extremely unusual. In the ghetto, most people had less than 2 days. Anyone with more time than that usually got robbed or killed. Will warned the man that the ghetto was dangerous and that thieves could steal his time. He advised him to leave immediately, but the man didn't seem to care. He completely ignored Will's warning. Just then, a gangster named Fortis entered the bar with his gang. The moment people saw him, everyone panicked and ran out. Boral grabbed Will and pulled him away as they rushed to escape. Will told Boral to leave and secretly stayed behind to watch. Fortis had come to steal Hamilton's time. Before robbing anyone, Fortis always challenged his victim to a time fight. The time fight was like arm wrestling. Both fighters locked wrists and tried to force the other's hand down. The moment one person's wrist went down, their time started draining and transferred to the opponent. The winner took all the time and the loser died. Fortis challenged Hamilton to a time fight. Hamilton asked for a few minutes and went to the bathroom. He was heavily drunk and started vomiting. It was clear he had no chance of winning. Will was hiding in the bathroom. At the right moment, he grabbed Hamilton and escaped from the bar. He took him to a safe place, saving him from Fortis. Seeing Hamilton's massive amount of time, Will realized he was from New Greenwich, the rich time zone. Angrily, Will asked, "Why are you wasting your time on purpose?" Hamilton smiled and asked Will's age. Will said he was 28. Hamilton replied, "I'm 105 years old. I'm tired of living." He continued, "What's the point of a life built on the deaths of poor people?" Shocked, Will asked what he meant. Hamilton said, "You still don't understand the truth." He asked Will, "Have you ever wondered why this world is divided into time zones? Why prices and taxes in the ghetto can be raised anytime?" Hamilton explained the truth. Inflation was raised on purpose, so poor people would keep dying. Their deaths directly benefited the rich living in New Greenwich. The entire system was designed by the rich. In New Greenwich, people had millions of years to live, but in the ghetto, people fought every day just to survive. This wasn't an accident. The rich never wanted the poor to have more time. They forced them to work by keeping them desperate. By raising prices and taxes, they made the poor spend more time so the rich could become immortal. Every extra day of the rich was built on the death of the poor. Hamilton said, "I'm ashamed of the place I come from." Will was shocked. Hamilton then asked, "If you had as much time as I do, what would you do?" Will smiled and said, "I'd stop watching the clock, but I wouldn't waste time." Will told Hamilton they should stay hidden for the night. By morning, the danger would be gone, and Hamilton could return home. The night passed. When Will woke up, Hamilton was gone. Will looked at his clock. It now showed 100 116 years. Will noticed a message written on the window. Don't waste my time. Hamilton had given all his time to Will. Suddenly, Will saw Hamilton sitting at the edge of a bridge. Will ran toward him, but it was too late. Hamilton's clock hit 0. He collapsed and fell off the bridge, dead. Will felt the loss, but knowing the danger, he ran. Sometime later, Will returned to his friend Borrell. Will told Borrell everything and showed him his clock. Seeing 116 years, Borrell was shocked. Out of friendship, Will transferred 10 years to Borrell. Borrell's eyes filled with tears. But he warned Will, with this much time, staying in the ghetto is dangerous. What will you do now? Will replied, I'll follow my dreams. I'll take my mom to New Greenwich, where no one can steal our time. Will said goodbye and left. That same night, Rachel finished paying all the loans and bills and boarded a bus to go home. But she was shocked to learn the bus fare had doubled in a single day. Earlier, a ticket to Dayton cost 1 hour. Now, it cost 2 hours. Rachel had only 90 minutes left. Even if she walked, it would take 2 hours to reach home. She begged the bus driver, saying her son would meet her in Dayton and give her time. But the driver refused, saying it was against policy. The bus was full of passengers, yet no one helped her. The bus drove away. With very little time left, Rachel began running toward home. Meanwhile, Will was waiting at the bus stop with a bouquet of flowers for his mom. When the bus arrived and Rachel wasn't on it, Will panicked. He immediately realized something was wrong. Will ran to find her. Rachel now had only minutes left. She knocked on people's doors, begging for a little time, but everyone refused. Suddenly, Will saw her in the distance. Seeing his mother running, Will knew she was almost out of time. He stretched out his arm and ran toward her with all his strength. Rachel had only 10 seconds left. She ran toward Will with everything she had. Will ran toward her too, but a 1-second gap decided everything. Rachel's time hit 0. She collapsed in Will's arms. Will held his mother and cried, completely broken. By the next morning, Hamilton's death spread like wildfire. In this world, there were timekeepers, law enforcement officers who tracked time crimes in the ghettos. Their chief, Raymond, recovered Hamilton's body. Raymond questioned nearby witnesses and learned that Hamilton had over 100 years just before his death. Now, his clock showed 0. Raymond suspected murder for time theft. Then he noticed a CCTV camera near the bridge and went to check the footage. Meanwhile, Will realized the truth. His mother hadn't died by accident. The rich of New Greenwich were responsible, the ones who had turned the poor into slaves of every second. Driven by anger and grief, Will decided to go to New Greenwich. Reaching it meant crossing 4 time zone borders. Each border required paying a huge amount of time. That was why poor people never reached New Greenwich. Will spent almost 1 year of his time crossing the borders and finally arrived. What he saw shocked him. The rich lived in pure luxury. No one rushed. No one checked the clock. People had so much time that they didn't even worry about it. Yet even here, they walked with armed bodyguards protecting their time. Will stayed at a luxury hotel and slowly blended into the world of the rich. Meanwhile, timekeeper Raymond reviewed the CCTV footage from the night of Hamilton's death. The camera did not capture Hamilton falling from the bridge, but it clearly showed Will standing nearby. To Raymond, that was enough. Will became the prime suspect. Raymond immediately launched a manhunt. The job of the timekeepers wasn't just to catch time thieves. They also ensured the system itself stayed balanced. They had access to data from every time zone, including the average time people possessed. In the ghettos, the average was less than 1 day. If Will were still there, the ghetto's average time would have increased, but it hadn't. That's when Raymond realized Will had left the ghetto. Soon after, CCTV footage confirmed Will crossing borders toward New Greenwich. Raymond and his team headed there immediately. In New Greenwich, Will entered a casino. He was highly skilled at gambling, the perfect way to take time from the rich. Will played a high-stakes poker game against a wealthy man named Philip Weiss. He put all his time on the line. Using his skill, Will won 1,100 years from Philip. Philip, a powerful banker, wasn't bothered. He had earned millions of years by trapping poor people in high-interest time loans. Impressed by Will's talent, Philip introduced him to his daughter, Sylvia. She was immediately drawn to Will's confidence and personality. Sylvia invited Will to a party at her house the next night. The following evening, Will arrived in a brand new luxury car. As the night went on, Will and Sylvia grew closer. Sylvia began to fall for him, but before she could confess her feelings, timekeeper Raymond arrived with his team. They arrested Will on the spot. Raymond seized all of Will's time. Raymond left Will with only 2 hours and arrested him for Hamilton's murder. Believing Will was a killer, Sylvia turned against him. Suddenly, Will fought back. He overpowered Raymond's men, grabbed a gun, and took Sylvia hostage to escape. Using her as a shield, Will fled, outsmarting Raymond and his team and making it back to the ghetto. By then, Will was almost out of time. He begged Sylvia for a little time. She refused. She still believed he he had killed Hamilton. Distracted, Will didn't notice what lay ahead. A spiked chain stretched across the road. The car hit it, the tires burst, and the vehicle plunged off a bridge. Both Will and Sylvia were knocked unconscious. The trap had been set by Fortis and his gang. Seeing Sylvia had 10 years, Fortis began stealing her time. But then he heard timekeeper sirens and fled with his gang. Will and Sylvia woke up. Sylvia panicked when she saw she had only 30 minutes left. Will realized Fortis was responsible. He also had only a few minutes remaining, yet he still transferred some of his time to Sylvia, balancing their clocks. Without wasting a second, Will took Sylvia to Burrell's house, the friend he had once given 10 years. But Burrell's wife opened the door, furious. She said, "The 10 years you gave him killed my husband. He wasted it all on alcohol and died." Will was crushed, but there was no time to grieve. Will and Sylvia now had only 2.5 minutes left. Sylvia began to panic. Will noticed Sylvia's diamond earring. By selling it, they gained 2 days of time. Will then took Sylvia to a phone booth and called her father, Philip. He told him that Sylvia was safe. Raymond was standing beside Philip at that moment, and Will knew it. Will made a deal. In exchange for Sylvia's release, he demanded 10,000 years. But there was one condition. The time had to be distributed to poor people through the time bank by the next morning. For Philip, 10,000 years was nothing. Yet he refused because he never wanted the poor to receive time. Will took Sylvia to his home. They waited for morning. That night, Sylvia asked Will about his family. Will told her the truth. His mother had died just the night before because she ran out of time. Sylvia was shaken. For the first time, she truly understood how poor people live in constant fear of death. She began to feel sympathy for Will. The next morning, as soon as the bank opened, Will and Sylvia watched closely. But the bank did nothing. No time was given to the poor. Sylvia was devastated. She realized her father valued the system more than his own daughter. In that moment, Sylvia understood the truth. Her father wasn't just a businessman. He was a guardian of the system, a man who collected years from the deaths of the poor. Seeing Sylvia's heartbreak, Will decided to let her go. He took her back to the phone booth and told her to call her father and ask him to send help. Before leaving, Will gave Sylvia a gun for her protection and sat down by the roadside. While Sylvia was talking to her father on the phone, timekeeper Raymond quietly arrived. From behind, Raymond raised his gun at Will. Will didn't see him. Just as Raymond was about to fire, Sylvia noticed him. In panic, she pulled the trigger. The bullet grazed Raymond's arm. He was injured, but alive. Will rushed to him and checked his clock. Raymond had only 2 hours left. Timekeepers were paid 1 day of time per shift. When it ran out, they had to refill from a time capsule inside their vehicle. Instead of letting Raymond die, Will transferred 2 hours to him. Then Will took Raymond's car and escaped with Sylvia. Now Sylvia was involved too. There was no going back. Will told her she could still return to her old life, but Sylvia refused. In New Greenwich, her life had felt like a golden cage, safe, rich, but empty. Out here, she felt freedom, danger, and purpose for the first time. She chose to stand with Will. Together, Will and Sylvia began robbing the rich. They targeted Philip's banks because all that time had been collected from the deaths of the poor. Time was stored inside vaults and time capsules. Will and Sylvia emptied those vaults and distributed the time to poor people. They became heroes to the poor and a nightmare for the timekeepers. Raymond placed a 10-year bounty on Will and Sylvia. To claim the reward, Fortis and his gang began hunting them relentlessly. But Will and Sylvia changed locations every single day, staying one step ahead. Recently, they hid in a luxury hotel. They had so much time that they booked the entire place. That same night, Fortis searched the area. At gunpoint, he rounded up locals and demanded information. The people refused. Will and Sylvia had helped them too much. They were ready to die, but not to betray them. Still, one man, terrified of death, finally revealed the hotel's location. Meanwhile, inside the hotel room, Will and Sylvia were sharing a quiet, intimate moment. Suddenly, the door was smashed open. Fortis and his men stormed in and captured Will. Escape was impossible, but Fortis didn't want to kill Will quickly. He wanted to enjoy it. He forced Will onto a table and challenged him to a time fight. Will knew the truth, win or lose. Fortis's men would kill him anyway. Still, Will accepted. They locked wrists. The fight for life began. Fortis was an expert. Within seconds, he pushed Will's hand down. Will's time began draining into Fortis. Fortis strained with full force, yet Will showed no resistance. It looked like Will was losing on purpose. Will now had only seconds left. Seeing this, Fortis was sure he had won. Overconfident, he loosened his grip. That was Will's trick. In one sudden move, Will slammed Fortis's hand down. Now it was Fortis's time draining away. Will's strength overwhelmed him, and Fortis began to lose. Fortis's men stared at his clock in panic. In that instant, Will pulled a hidden gun from his shoe and shot all of Fortis's men. Fortis's time hit 0. He collapsed dead. Will and Sylvia escaped immediately. But outside, They saw the truth. The rich had changed the rules. All the time Will and Sylvia had distributed to the poor was now worth nothing. The elites had raised inflation many times over. Will felt defeated. He told Sylvia, "It's over. Even if we give people thousands of years, the rich will just raise prices again." Sylvia asked, "Then how much time would it take to really change things?" Will answered, "About 1 million years. Only that much could defeat inflation." It sounded impossible, but Sylvia already had a plan. The very next morning, Philip arrived at his office with dozens of bodyguards. Suddenly, Sylvia walked in and said she wanted to surrender. Guards aimed their guns at her. At that moment, a guard stepped forward. It was Will in disguise. He pressed a gun to Philip's head. Together, Will and Sylvia broke into Philip's locker and stole a time capsule containing 1 million years. Every single year inside that time capsule had been taken from the deaths of poor people. Philip and the other elites had hoarded it. Will and Sylvia escaped with the capsule. When Raymond learned the truth, he immediately went after them. If those 1 million years reached the poor, everyone in the ghetto would become immortal, and the entire system built by the rich would collapse. Raymond used all his power to stop them, but he failed. Will and Sylvia made it back to the ghetto and handed the time capsule to safe hands. Then they ran. In a deserted area, Raymond finally caught them. By now, the people of Dayton were becoming immortal as the stolen years were distributed, but Will and Sylvia had very little time left. Raymond threatened Will, "Give back the stolen time if you want to live." Will raised his arm and showed his clock. He and Sylvia had only minutes remaining. Will said calmly, "Did you forget? I lent you time. You're the one who owes me." Raymond froze. In chasing them, he had forgotten to check his own clock. He looked down. 5 seconds left. Before he could react, his time hit 0. Raymond collapsed dead. Will and Sylvia were free from him, but now they each had only 1 minute left. They stood alone in the empty place, with no one left to help them. Their deaths felt inevitable, broken and hopeless. Will and Sylvia hugged each other, ready to accept death. Then Will noticed Raymond's car. He ran to it and quickly transferred Raymond's remaining salary time into his own clock. Without wasting a second, Will rushed back towards Sylvia to give her time. Sylvia ran toward him too. The moment felt exactly like Will's past, the moment he had lost his mother. He had failed once. This time, he refused to lose Sylvia. Will reached her just in time. Sylvia collapsed into his arms, but Will managed to grab her hand before her time ran out. She survived. Because of Will and Sylvia, every person in Dayton became immortal. People no longer had to work in factories just to earn 1 hour of life. Free at last, they left for New Greenwich to chase their dreams. The system built by the rich collapsed completely, but Will and Sylvia didn't stop. They continued robbing the rich and redistributing time until every human in the world became immortal. The final scene shows Will and Sylvia entering another rich man's bank vault, and with that, the story ends. If this story kept you hooked till the end, hit the subscribe button because the next story will be even crazier.